to you now from up in Gualala, actually. Beautiful spot over on the Mendocino coast. And very cool. Beautiful, beautiful place. The weather's just delightful. It's like 70 degrees. Beautiful. Sun's out. So, hey, we are wrapping up a series on questions that Jesus asked. And today we have one that's kind of, it's a little bit of a funny one. Comes out of the book of John. And it's where Jesus is talking to Peter. And John asks him a question. And Jesus kind of like shuts him down. He says this. Sorry, I lost my other glasses broke, so I'm using these right now. But he says this: if I want this one to wait till I come, what is that to you? You follow me. So this is kind of a little bit of a pushback against Peter, saying, hey, don't be worried about everything else. You just do what I'm talking to you about. So this story takes place after the resurrection of Jesus. So he is out at the Sea of Galilee with the disciples, and Peter, James, John, all those. So they're out, and they didn't know what to do with themselves. So Jesus is gone. They've seen him already twice since he raised from the dead. God raised him from the dead. But they're kind of not sure what to do with themselves. So they do what they know how to do. They go back to fishing. So they go out fishing, and they're fishing all night, because you kind of fish like at nighttime there. And they come close to shore, and there's somebody sitting over on the shore cooking like a little breakfast thing. And he calls out and says, hey, how have you done? And not too well, they say. So he says, throw your net over on the right side of the boat and you'll catch fish. And so they do that, and immediately they catch a huge catch of fish. And Peter, because this has happened before, Peter goes, it's the Lord. And so he was stripped down to just working clothes, and he throws on a shirt and he jumps into the water and starts swimming to Jesus. I love that about Peter. He's just so like, I want to go be with the Lord. And it's very impulsive. And leaves the rest of the guy with this huge catch of fish, and they're having to haul it up in nets, is how they caught him then. So Peter goes over and sees Jesus, and Jesus says, hey, bring some more fish. And so one of the cool things about this is, at first, the disciples don't recognize Jesus. He looks a little different. And then they totally do recognize him, which is kind of a glimpse in the future for us, that when we are raised after the resurrection from the dead, we will probably look a little different than we do, but still recognizable. So that's kind of a cool little side note on this part of the story. But anyway, so they figure out this, they know for sure this is Jesus now. And he's cooking them breakfast. Isn't that awesome? The God of everything. And he's there on the beach, and he's cooking breakfast. And so they go get a few more fish. And here's another little cool side note. The count of fish was, I'm sorry, I don't have the whole text with me, but I think it was like 116 fish. Well, I love the fact that it's not just a lot of fish. It's 116 fish, or whatever the number is. And that the gospel writer, in this case John, remembered that detail. So it's kind of like proof that this really happened. This isn't something he's making up. So they get some more fish, and they go over, and Jesus cooks it and serves them breakfast. And again, how awesome is that? Your God who created the universe, and he's cooking and serving you breakfast. Wow, Jesus is awesome. Anyway, so then this is where this conversation, this special conversation happens. It's about, and John is there because he's kind of the one who's writing all this down later, but it's between Jesus and Peter. And Jesus says this to Peter. I'm going to put on my reader so I can read it exactly. He said, I tell you, Peter, when you were young, you put on your belt and you went wherever you wanted to go. But when you get old, you'll put out your hands and someone else will put on your belt and take you away where you don't want to go. He said this to tell Peter what kind of death he would die to honor God. After Jesus said this, he said to Peter, follow me. So Jesus is telling Peter that at some point he is going to be martyred for his belief in Jesus and for the gospel. So he tells him that, and then Peter has this response. So he says, Peter turned around and saw the follower who Jesus loved. This is John himself. He called himself that sometimes. And he said, but Lord, what about him? Okay, so Peter, now, and the people that have studied this a lot aren't quite sure. Is Peter asking because he's concerned about John, because John is a good friend, and he wants to know what's his future going to be? Or is he kind of like changing the conversation away from what's going to happen to him? Anyway, so here's Jesus' response. He says, if I want this one to wait until I come back again, what is that to you? You follow me. So Jesus kind of tells Peter, hey, don't be so worried about what's going on with other people. You just worry about you, and I want you to follow me, and don't worry about somebody else. So that's kind of an interesting insight into God. God wants to tell us our story. He wants to be involved in our story. And he kind of says, hey, stay out of it with other people's stories. You don't know the situation. You don't know what's going on. It's none of your business, basically. But there's a kind of an interesting part to this, which is that Jesus tells Peter to follow him. He says, you don't worry about anybody else. You just follow me. And so I think that's a real important lesson for you in there, which is that sometimes God is going to tell you to do something or to not do something, and he might not say the same thing to other people. Your friends or even your family might not be hearing this clear word from God of something that he wants you to do. Now, I want you to be careful about that. I'm not saying you should ever disobey your parents on this, but you need to be careful about like reading from all parts of the Bible all the time, and it helps give you wisdom and guidance. So you know that God would never tell you to do something that's like weird and inconsistent with what the Bible teaches, which is mostly that we should love each other and we should obey God and follow him, right? But there may come a time when other people aren't hearing the same thing from God that you are hearing, okay? And I want to tell you a story in my life of when that happened. It was a real important time for me. I was just graduated from high school, and it was the summer before I came to college, which was up here at Chico State University. I grew up in the Bay Area, and so I came up here to go to school. But I had an opportunity that summer to go up and volunteer my time for 3 weeks at this camp up in British Columbia called Malibu. It's a young life camp, and it's a beautiful, beautiful place. And I was going up there, and I was volunteering, and I was going to work, and they call it in the pit crew, cleaning up all the pots and pans and dishes and stuff like that for 3 weeks without getting paid. As a matter of fact, it cost me money to go there. And then I was staying a 4th week because they were doing a special kind of time for just other seniors from high school that were going off into college, and just a time to pray together and to study the Bible together and really make ourselves strong for going into college. So anyway, I had this opportunity, and I wanted to do it. I felt like this was going to be a great thing for me to help make me strong, build up my faith, give me some great relationships to take with me into college. Well, my dad said, hey, I don't think you should do this. I think you should be making money because you have to pay for your own housing and food and stuff when you get to college. And that was the deal we had in our family. They would pay books and tuition, and I had to pay for my own room and board, all my food and all where I'm going to stay. So I had a big decision to make. My dad is against it, but I'm like thinking this is something God wants me to do. And my dad said, if you end up coming up short and needing money, don't come to us. I won't bail you out. So be careful about your decision here. So he wasn't against it. He didn't say I can't do it. Matter of fact, he said this is probably a great thing. But he said, I think you should be earning more money. And so I prayed about it, and I felt like God saying, yeah, come on up, go do that thing. It'll be great. And that's what I chose to do. So it was one of my big decisions up to that point in my life when I had to make a choice. I'm going to do what I hope is pleasing to God and not worry about what my dad was going to say. And so I did go. I had a great time. I met some great people, some of whom I'm still friends with 43 years later. And I also just learned some good skills in terms of daily time with God and reading the scriptures that would help me to stay a strong believer in my college years. When a lot of people fall away from their faith, and I did not, and I am appreciative to all those people and things that I learned, and for, of course, God himself taking care of me. So anyway, the lesson is, again, don't worry about other people when God is talking to you. When he's talking to you, you listen and you do what he says, and that's what Peter heard. Okay, so take time to listen, ask God questions, and he wants to talk to you. He wants to inform your life and make so that you make good choices and know how much he loves you and such. Okay, so I hope you're staying well, and I know school's about to start in whatever form that's going to look like. So good luck with that. Hope you get fabulous teachers, and we miss you and look forward to being together again. Okay, bye now. Signing off from you all.